For more than 2,000 years, the story of China's first emperor has been told with a certain sense of finality. Qin Shi Huang, the ruler who unified the warring states in 221 BCE, reshaped the Chinese world with a severity that history rarely forgets. He standardized writing, currency, and measurement. He built roads across a fractured land. He began the long defensive spine that would later become known as the Great Wall. His ambition was unmistakable. His authority was absolute. But death, even for an emperor, remained unavoidable. According to ancient records, Qin Shi Huang prepared extensively for the afterlife. Vast resources were mobilized for the construction of his mausoleum near modern-day Xi'an. Historians believed they understood this story. The emperor's tomb was described in ancient texts, particularly by the historian Sima Qian, who wrote nearly a century after the emperor's death. His account spoke of a vast underground complex, guarded by mechanisms, filled with rivers of mercury meant to represent the geography of China. For centuries, these descriptions lingered in the realm between history and legend. Then, in the spring of 1974, something emerged from the soil that would force historians to reconsider the scale of imperial ambition. Thousands of life-size soldiers, frozen in clay, arranged in silent formation beneath the earth. An entire army. And this is where the contradiction begins. If these figures had remained buried for over 2 millennia, hidden beneath quiet farmland, how vast must the emperor's vision of eternity have truly been? Northern Shaanxi province is a landscape of gentle hills and lush soil, a wind-shaped terrain that holds traces of ancient civilizations. By the 20th century, the region surrounding the city of Xi'an was largely agricultural. Wheat fields stretched across the land. Villages rested quietly among dusty roads and irrigation canals. Beneath this quiet surface, however, lay the buried remains of China's first imperial dynasty. Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum had long been known to exist. The tomb mound itself rises prominently near Mount Li, a large earthen pyramid standing approximately 70 meters high. For generations, scholars suspected that extraordinary structures might lie beneath the surrounding fields. Ancient texts suggested as much. Yet archaeology had revealed little. Most assumed that whatever had once existed around the tomb had long since collapsed, eroded, or disappeared. But history does not break easily. Sometimes it waits. And in 1974, it waited for a group of farmers digging a well. The discovery began not with archaeologists, but with necessity. A severe drought had affected local crops, and villagers sought deeper groundwater to sustain their fields. As they dug through the packed earth, their shovels struck something hard. Fragments of terracotta. At first, the pieces seemed ordinary, perhaps remnants of pottery or old kiln debris. But the fragments were unusually large. A face appeared, then part of a torso. The shape was unmistakably human, yet far larger than any typical ceramic figure. Local officials were notified. Archaeologists from the Shaanxi Provincial Museum soon arrived. What they uncovered was not a single statue. It was the beginning of an army. Excavation revealed an enormous underground chamber stretching across the farmland. Rows of clay soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, aligned in strict military formation. Their posture suggested readiness. Their weapons, though mostly removed in antiquity, had once included bronze swords, spears, and crossbows. The soldiers were not identical. Each face appeared distinct. Hairstyles varied. Armor patterns changed from figure to figure. Officers stood taller than infantry. Archers knelt in poised readiness. Charioteers gripped imaginary reins. And this is where the unsettling part emerges. The army was not symbolic in the abstract sense. It was organized with the precision of a real military unit. The first excavation pit alone covered more than 14,000 square meters. Within it stood thousands of soldiers arranged in 11 parallel corridors, separated by earthen walls and once covered by wooden beams and packed soil roofing. The front ranks consisted of archers, positioned as if to meet an approaching enemy. Behind them stood infantry and war chariots, forming a structure recognizable to historians of ancient warfare. This was not myth. This is stone and clay, and it was only the beginning. Subsequent excavations revealed additional pits. Pit 2 contained a complex mixture of cavalry, archers, and chariot forces, suggesting tactical flexibility. Pit 3 appeared to function as a command post, housing high-ranking officers and a ceremonial chariot. In total, archaeologists estimate that more than 8,000 soldiers were originally constructed. Alongside them were hundreds of horses, wooden chariots reinforced with bronze fittings, and an entire logistical framework of military support. Each figure stood approximately 1.8 to 2 meters tall. They were built using a modular method, torsos formed from hollow clay cylinders, limbs attached separately, and heads sculpted individually. After firing in kills, artisans applied lacquer and vibrant pigments. Originally, the army was brightly colored. Traces of purple, red, green, and blue still cling faintly to some surfaces, though exposure to air caused most pigments to deteriorate rapidly after excavation. The manufacturing scale required to produce such an army is staggering. Archaeologists estimate that tens of thousands of laborers worked on the mausoleum complex during Qin Shi Huang's reign. Clay was sourced locally. Workshops likely operated simultaneously across the region, producing components that were later assembled near the burial site. Bronze weaponry discovered among the soldiers reveals remarkable metallurgical sophistication. Many blades show traces of chromium oxide treatment, a chemical process that helped protect them from corrosion. Though modern chromium plating techniques were only formally developed in the 20th century, the Qin craftsmen appear to have unintentionally achieved a similar protective effect through their bronze composition and polishing methods. Precision was everywhere. Weapons were standardized. Arrowheads were manufactured in batches with identical dimensions. Crossbow triggers were carefully engineered mechanical devices. This suggests something profound about Qin administration. The empire that unified China was not merely powerful. It was organized with an intensity rarely seen in the ancient world. And yet, the Terracotta Army exists not on a battlefield, but beneath the earth. Why? The most widely accepted explanation comes directly from the worldview of ancient China. Qin Shi Huang believed in the continuation of imperial authority beyond death. Just as his earthly rule required protection, so too would his journey into the afterlife. In this interpretation, the terracotta soldiers function as guardians of the emperor's tomb. They are substitutes for real warriors. Earlier Chinese burial traditions sometimes included the sacrifice of living attendants to accompany elite individuals into death. By the Qin dynasty, however, the use of life-sized clay figures may have replaced this brutal practice. Instead of burying thousands of soldiers alive, artisans created an army in their likeness. It was a compromise between ritual and humanity, but not all scholars agree entirely with this interpretation. Some argue that the Terracotta Army represents more than simple guardianship. The scale of the project suggests an ideological statement, a demonstration of imperial power extending beyond mortality itself. The soldiers mirror the structure of the Qin military during the emperor's lifetime. Their formation replicates the strategies used in real campaigns. In this view, the underground army reflects Qin Shi Huang's obsession with permanence. He unified China once. He intended to rule forever. Ancient texts support this perception. Qin Shi Huang famously pursued immortality, sending expeditions across the seas in search of mythical elixirs. Ironically, historical evidence suggests that some of these supposed medicines contained mercury, a substance that may have contributed to his death in 210 BCE. And mercury appears again in the description of his tomb. According to Sima Qian, the central burial chamber contains rivers and seas of liquid mercury arranged to replicate the geography of China. Modern scientific surveys of the mausoleum mound have detected unusually high concentrations of mercury in the surrounding soil. Archaeologists have not yet opened the emperor's central tomb. Partly out of caution, partly out of respect, the burial chamber remains sealed, preserving whatever structures lie within. And so the Terracotta Army stands outside it, silent and watchful. Rows upon rows of soldiers stare outward across empty corridors, their clay eyes fixed on a world that changed centuries ago. Some figures show subtle expressions of determination. Others appear calm, almost contemplative. None move. History does not often preserve moments of power with such clarity. Empires leave ruins. Armies dissolve. Records fade into fragments of text. But here, beneath the fields of Shaanxi, the machinery of an ancient state remains almost intact. An emperor once commanded this vision. Thousands of craftsmen shaped clay into soldiers. Kilns burned day and night. Bronze weapons were forged, polished, and arranged into formation. And then the earth closed above them. For more than 2,000 years, the army waited. Not fighting, not guarding, simply existing beneath the quiet rhythm of farmland and seasons. Which raises a final, unsettling question. When Qin Shi Huang ordered the creation of this underground force, was he preparing for threats in the afterlife? Or was he attempting something deeper, an architectural declaration that power, once achieved, should never truly disappear? History does not provide a clear answer. The terracotta soldiers remain where they have always stood, arranged in perfect military discipline, facing outward from the emperor's tomb. They do not speak, but their silence carries weight, because somewhere beneath them, still sealed and untouched, lies the burial chamber of the man who believed an empire could follow him into eternity. And perhaps the most remarkable truth is this: for 2,000 years, it